I've become burdened by my duties as a wife. This burden insists that I love at all costs and asks me to make unrealistic sacrifices to the man I married. I'm forced to smile when I wish to sigh. I'm required to laugh when I wish to weep, and I'm told I must resist the urge to run free when I wish to breathe. Although I love my husband, I know as well that this love for him has changed, and that, in its current state, it is a love that obligates rather than devotes. My husband is George Gardner. He's a handsome man whose qualities of earnest doing, protective character, and cordial attitude made me fall in love with him several years ago. He is, in addition, a retired soldier who spent 3 years of his life fighting in the Middle East. His image, therefore, is that of a hero. Those who gaze upon him when he's in uniform view him with a sense of pride, respect, and veneration. Despite this, I rarely see my husband in the same dignified sense, for I know him as a wife, and thus I understand him as a man, not a hero. It's this understanding that causes me to sigh in the manner that I do. No matter how much I wish to love him, I just become tired. Just so tired. This is my husband as a man. He screams in his sleep. He tosses and turns, fidgets in bed, and moans out loud. He wakes up, gasps in the dark, and trembles with sweat on his brow. Sometimes I wake with him, other times I pretend to sleep, ignore him, and let him sigh in loneliness. He'll get up from bed if I don't wake to comfort him, walk to the bathroom, and wash his face. Then he'll go to the living room and fetch the dog tags that he keeps near the bookshelf. There are 2 tags. I've seen them many times. And finally, my husband will trudge to the garage, sit down on the steps, close the door behind him, and weep. He'll weep in silence and have tears trickle down his face in unrelenting streaks. He'll sigh, moan, and gasp. He'll snivel and wipe his face a dozen times, while hot tears burn his cheeks and snot runs down his lips. His hair will be bedraggled and unkempt, skewed at an awkward angle with an unsightly cowlick. His feet and legs will be bared with a pair of boxer briefs worn over his thighs. A white wife-beater will cover his shoulders. His hands, of course, will clutch the dog tags like sacred relics, and he'll bring them up to his face to press against his forehead. The tags will wrap around his knuckles. He'll squeeze them tight in his fists. He'll whisper,
"I'm sorry. I'm so sorry,"
and rock back and forth on the ground with his face red from sobbing. This is my husband. This is the man whom I married. I've served, loved, and protected him for years, and in the process I've grown old and wearied as a woman. To admit this, however, to admit that I'm exhausted from having cared for him, would be a capital sin, and so I sigh in silence whenever he weeps in the garage. No woman is allowed to loathe her husband. No woman is allowed to despise her marriage. She is, moreover, forbidden to detest her lover, especially if he's regarded as a war hero in the minds of the American public. This is the unfair, unspoken, and unbreakable law of American politics. I'm suffocated because of this. I am suffocated by how much I must repress what I feel. I'm suffocated by the nightmares, the trauma, the anger, the lies, the alcohol, the medication, the bills, the therapy sessions, the outbursts, the mood swings, and the whole fucking PTSD bullshit. I want to hate my husband. I want to hate what he's become and curse him for changing. I want to beg and scream, yell out loud and demand that he return to the man whom I once loved. I just want to be a woman again. I just want to be a woman who is proud to be married to her man. Patriotism. American pride and patriotism. I hate how American patriotism commands me to love when all I want to do is sigh in my heart. Today, George is in the garage again. I can hear it in my heart as he sits there and cries. I know I'm supposed to rise out of bed and go to him, but oh, how I wish I could just lie here and sleep. How I wish I could just close my eyes and go back to dreaming. I don't want to see him. I don't want to get out of bed and go to him in the garage. I don't want to hold him and smell his tears, or have him sob against my breast, or pull him up from the ground and guide him back to our bedroom. I don't want to inspect the fridge. I don't want to go to the kitchen, peer inside and see another bottle of beer gone. I don't want him to hit me again.
I'm so sorry, Alice. I'm just so goddamn sorry. For everything.
I turned over in bed. As predicted, the space next to me was empty. I looked to the side and saw the digital clock read 2:35 a.m. I groaned. I got out of bed, located my robe, and put it on. Then I left the bedroom and felt a cold draft of wind blow at me from behind. My robe flared around my ankles like thin ghosts.
I love you. No matter what, I love you.
I went downstairs and walked to the kitchen. I sighed again, with relief, when I checked the fridge and saw that none of the beer bottles were missing. It's somewhat of a danger, I suppose, to have alcohol in the house with his PTSD and emotional outbursts. But I also knew that having alcohol sometimes soothed him. It's become a double-edged sword. Sometimes drinking will put him in a pacified sleep. Other times it will put him in a sudden rage where he'll curse and threaten me. His fists had felt like bricks when he first slapped me. I approached the garage door. The garage light was on. I could see the door's outline lit from the inside. Muffled sobs came from behind the door. I walked through the hall, steadied myself, and placed my hand on the doorknob. I braced myself. He was there, hunched on the steps with his face in his hands. He was, like always, in his wife-beater and boxer briefs. His hair was disheveled and unkempt, his skin prickled with goose-flesh from the cold, thinning air. When he sensed me, he swallowed, managed to cough, and wiped his face. His eyes were bloodshot and his cheeks flushed red, sticky from the residues of tears. I sat down next to him and spread my robe over my knees. I waited.
Did I wake you?
No, I lied. You didn't. He said nothing. I just stared at the garage floor in front of us and thought back to the time when we first met. It had been eons ago.
I'm fine now,
He whispered.
I just had to get up a bit. To breathe.
He managed a hoarse cough. His dog tags were wrapped around his hand.
Do you want a divorce, Alice?
I looked at him. I frowned. In that moment, my last ounce of love for him dissolved, and I felt nothing in my heart other than bitterness, disappointment, and sadness. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slap him in the face and tell him how much I despised him, that I had given up everything for him, when all he'd given me in return were just excuses, rage, and emotional torment. I wanted to throw away his dog tags. I wanted to desecrate his military uniform. I wanted to shriek in his face and tell him that it didn't matter if he was a hero, or a war veteran, or some goddamn American soldier, or whatever title Americans love to fetishize and celebrate. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fucking tell him that he wasn't who he was, and that now, sitting here with me in the cold, in the garage, and in tears, that he was just a man. Just a fucking blubbering, stupid man who couldn't face his own goddamn PTSD. But I said nothing. I just said nothing.
I love you.
He whispered.
No matter what, I love you.
I wrapped my arms around him, and I closed my eyes. I recalled the moment when he'd slapped me in the face. I recalled how he'd stared at me after he'd slapped me, defiant and bewildered, and how he'd shouted at me, shrieked at me, saying in a drunken slur,
"See what you made me do? I'm a veteran. I served this country. You should feel proud of me."
I leaned in toward him so that he could rest his head against my breast, and I kissed him. "Let's go," I said. I pulled him up from the ground. "Let's go back to bed." He nodded and rose to his feet. I turned away before he could hold or kiss me, and we traveled back up the stairs to our bedroom. We got in bed together, and he held me from behind as we went to sleep.